Yeah, I mean, and also you got to figure it's sort of like a self-perpetuating problem too, where if you, let's say you've hit rock bottom, even if you don't know it, and you're like, oh, I want to fix my life. I want to do something with my life, let's say, the kind of
Hmm.
generic rock bottom. Well, let's say you get paralysis by analysis and you're not able to sort of like pick a path and you go nowhere.
Hmm.
That only reinforces the idea that you screwed up again.
Hmm.
But you haven't. There's just too many choices, and you're allowing too many factors to be at play here. Jocko, however he said it, is dead on. And there's another way that's talked about in the military, which is an 80% solution now is oftentimes better than a 100% solution tomorrow. And it's all
Interesting.
about like speed over certainty. In the military, it applies a lot of
Hmm.
times. But that's the way I think people should generally, not always, but generally look at their lives if they haven't quite built anything yet, whether they're at rock bottom or just starting out, like they're young people and they're or whatever age you're at. If you feel like you need to make a change, like you said, the pain of staying the same is greater than making a change. If you're at that point, you kind of know it. Think about what matters to you, whatever it is. Like I like to equate it to when like you're in the shower by yourself and you're just having unfiltered true thoughts. Like ask yourself, what do you really care about? Like honest to God. Like forget what society says you should care about. Let's say you really just want to be famous. And that's the actual core. And you don't even know why, but that's what you want. Well, guess what? Listen to that part of you. It's not vain. It's a thing that matters to you. Similarly, if you're like, I want to be just rich, great. If that's a real motivation for you, like at your core, in the shower, it's just you. If that's really what drives you, great. Those are boxes that must be checked for something to be worth doing.
Hmm.
So it's like have your shower thoughts and be real with yourself. Like, what do you really actually care about? Not what society says, not what you want your family, none of that stuff. For me, honestly, the reason the SEAL thing really paid, I wanted to do it ultimately, is I wanted people to say, that's John Allen, the Navy SEAL. Because to me, it was like I had been the black sheep in my family. Because of me, I had discovered this. But it's like, oh, his sisters have done this. Oh, his dad's done this. His mom's done this. And then there's John. I wanted something that sort of overrode the mediocrity and failure. And I felt like, what better thing? What more honorable thing? And it also, I wanted to serve. That's another check. It's a big goal. That's difficult. That's a check. But ultimately, it was like, I want people to know that I became a Navy SEAL. That mattered to me. And you know what? It flies in the face of what Navy SEAL instructors tell you, which is you shouldn't do this because you want to be a Navy SEAL. You should do it because you want to serve the country. And like, that's true. And what else are you going to tell your students?
Yeah.
But if you really want to be real about it, you got to find your real motivation, and that box must be checked.
Must be checked.
Yeah,
So I pause on the must be checked because once you become the Navy SEAL
yeah,
and everyone's saying that's John Allen, the Navy SEAL,
sure.
does your motivation disappear or does it become something else? And I think it's really honest, but also quite unorthodox advice to say, listen, if you're in the shower and you're going, I just want to be rich so I can prove those people
Yeah,
wrong, or I want to be famous, prove these people wrong. It's unorthodox advice to say to follow that,
yeah,
but I have to say, I just completely agree.
yeah,
I agree because sometimes you have to have a hypothesis fail you or some kind of idea fail you for you to scratch the itch. And that's why I was focusing on the side of ticking the box.
yeah.
It's going to stay there.
Yes, it
Like,
is.
I don't know if you can go to therapy or do ayahuasca or something to get rid of that thing. But for me, until you pursue it and have it fail you or succeed,
Yep.
it's going to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, exactly what you said. If that box goes unchecked, you might in your life eventually convince yourself that you never needed to check that box. But at some point in your life, when it becomes too late or you're about to die, you're on your deathbed, you will have regret. And I can actually speak to a specific instance in my life, which I had checked a box by this point, but I had one that I hadn't checked. I was in Afghanistan in 2014, and we were in this alleyway, and a grenade came over the wall, and it detonated next to a whole bunch of us, and I nearly bled to death. And I had this moment where I can't pull the tourniquets off of my kit that are rubber banded to my chest for quick access to stop the bleeding. But I was so weak and like losing my vision. We're in the middle of this gunfight. I couldn't get them off. And I realized as I'm sitting in this alleyway in the middle of this like horrible place in Afghanistan, like the town was very kinetic and dangerous. And I'm waiting to either be shot by the enemy, who we know is on the other side of the wall that could be coming around, or I'm going to bleed to death, or there are RPGs being fired blindly in our direction. It's like I'm about to die, 100%. I'm actively bleeding out, or I'm going to be shot. And all that was running through my head, there was a couple thoughts. There was one that was kind of funny now, which was, I was like, I wonder if my obituary will say Jonathan Allen killed in action or John Allen killed in action. So that was going through my head. But I also, in addition to that, I had this really acute sadness that I hadn't started a family yet. I didn't have kids. I was married. We've been married for several years. And my wife and I, we'd sort of talked about having kids before that deployment. But we were like, oh, we'll have time. And I'm sitting there in this alley bleeding to death or expecting to be shot to death. I'm at the end of my life. And it was like, holy shit, I wish I had a child. Yes, that's horrible for the kid. They lost their dad. But like that was a box for me. I wanted a family. What was the first thing I did when I survived this and got home? We started a family. You know, so it's like that's sort of an extreme example, but I do really believe that a lot of people have boxes that are going to go unchecked. But to your point also, just try to do it and fail. And believe it or not, you actually checked the box.